Hello there, I'm the student, and in this video I'm going to talk about a very interesting formable that allows you to unlock two different, very overpowered, you're going to see the modifiers in a second, very overpowered government reforms that are typically unique to Russia. But I'm not talking about Russia that you have to form, I'm talking about Ruthenia. Now you see Ruthenia has one big advantage compared to Russia. Ruthenia is not an endgame tag. A few people might think that because, you get the Tsardom, you become an empire and all that stuff, right? But it is actually not an endgame tag, which means that you can form Ruthenia and then after that, for example, form France or form Spain or form Great Britain or England even, you don't even have to form an endgame tag, right? What you can basically do with that is you can literally form Ruthenia in every single game, basically, if you want, right? Now, the other advantage is that Ruthenia actually unlocks both of these unique government reforms, whereas if you do that as Russia, you have to decide between one of the two reforms. You have to choose either one of them, whereas if you do it as Ruthenia, as I'm going to show you in a second, then you can actually switch between them both whenever you need the bonuses. And it's actually a very interesting mechanic because both of these bonuses have very specific advantages that you want to have in a very specific situation. So that basically Ruthenia gives you the opportunity to switch them around whenever you want. And the last advantage of Ruthenia is that you don't have to complete any missions or something, right? You just need to get to reform tier 6, which, by the way, you want to get, you probably will be anyways, because you need admin tech 10 to form Ruthenia, of course. So this is literally all the requirements that it has, except for one little thing. You need to be Orthodox. Now I'm saying it's a little thing because, you can see all of this land is Orthodox anyways, right? So you have to conquer a few provinces to form Ruthenia anyways. So you might as well switch to Orthodox religion via rebels. Or, of course, I made a video on that. Check that out if you haven't. You can just switch via an event to any religion you want, also including Orthodox, by just getting an Orthodox ruler, for example, by using the elective monarchy and choosing an Orthodox ruler from a neighboring country. So that means that the requirements are really simple, but you're going to see in a second that the reward, the two unique government reforms, are very, very much worth it. So let's just get into the actual reforms to show them off to you. First of all, you're going to notice that you don't need to be Orthodox to form Ruthenia, but you need to be Orthodox to get the Ruthenian Tsardom tier 1 government, which you need for 1 second, not for the entire game, but for 1 second to unlock the other reforms that I talked about. But yeah, whatever. You can just form Ruthenia with Tech 10 and with Ruthenian culture, and then you just need to be Orthodox, okay? Now let's do that as Lithuania here. There we go. Kiev becomes my new capital. Now I can, of course, also on the way, first of all, become an empire, which is not a usual thing to do if you form another nation, of course, right? So it's quite an advantage, honestly. It's not an endgame tag, again, right? You could form like Pomerania or something and be a Pomeranian empire like that. Now, just a small boost, and you can also take the national ideas of Ruthenia, which are actually quite interesting, not crazy overpowered, but quite nice modifiers for combat stuff and also core creation cost, years of separatism, and just like that. But what I really want to talk about is the reforms, of course. Now you see, as I'm Orthodox, I have the Ruthenian Tsardom. Problem is, you're going to lose that Ruthenian Tsardom if you are no longer Ruthenia. Now, as long as you are Ruthenia, you can, of course, use that to, for example, as you can see, recruit Streltsy regiments or have insane government capacity and so on. But after you formed another nation, you will lose that reform, which is no problem. Or, of course, if you switch religion, you will also lose that reform, but there's no problem. You can lose that reform later on. You just needed this one time to unlock the two government reforms. And now you can see them already on tier 6. They're both on tier 6. These are the two government reforms that I'm talking about, the governing Senate and enforced autocracy. Now, the interesting thing about these reforms is these are reforms that you keep once you had them at one point in the entire campaign, right? So all you need to do is to spend 100 reform progress to switch into one of them. By the way, I'm going to talk about the modifiers in a second, but you gain a parliament, so you could get reform progress from that as well. So switching isn't that expensive anymore. And then once you switched into both of these once, so right now, both of these reforms are now unlocked until the end of the game, okay? Now, let me just demonstrate that by changing the religion back to Catholic, for example, right? Now you can see I lost the Ruthenian Tsardom government reform over here, but I haven't lost the enforced autocracy. Now, with a little bit more reform progress, you're going to notice that I also didn't lose the governing Senate. So now what I can do is I can switch between those two whenever I like and how often I like. Of course, it costs 50 reform progress. Now, the other interesting thing is, let me just step up for a second, that these are very special government reforms because they count, or they are available on all 3 government reforms. So I could, for example, right now switch to a theocracy for the insane war score cost and CB over here. And yeah, I can just take up to tier 6 now. And you're going to see I can choose both of them again. And same goes for the Republic, right? So these are really very, very easily available government reforms now. They are not locked to a specific government type. And you've unlocked them until the end of the game now, so you can form another nation, you can get another religion, whatever. So that's the first part. Now we get to the very interesting part of the modifiers that these reforms have. Let's go with enforced autocracy first, maybe, because it's a very unique reform in that sense that it gives you the ability to sell titles and seize land from a specific estate. So if you have that enacted, you can see if you seize land, it will trigger an event that lets you choose to seize, for example, only from the nobility. Now, the same also goes for selling titles, which means that you can, with that reform, very easily control what estate you want to have the most land. So, for example, if you want the Cossacks to have 80% of your land and the others none, then, of course, for the Cossacks force limit, then you can do that very easily with that reform by seizing crown land from all the others only and selling 10% crown land to one estate, in that case, the Cossacks only. Okay, which makes it very, very easy to shift the balance of the estates whenever and however you like. That's not all. On top of that, it gives yearly government power, which is meant to be for the Russian modernization. But it also works, for example, if you are Egypt or something, have the Egyptian government. It also gives the same government power over there. Or if you are Persia, for example, and have the government power. So it's a yearly government power for all governments that use some kind of government power ability. And it gives negative 20% culture conversion time. One of the rarest modifiers in the entire game. So if you want to do a very fast one culture, for example, what you could do is probably you want to form Armenia or something. They have a mission that gives culture conversion time. Then you get this reform for negative 20%. Then you form Rome later for the tier 1 reform that also gives a reduced time. And that way this reform actually gives you a very unique modifier that is really very, very rare in the entire game, on top of the estate mechanics that are also very unique, where you don't need to take court ideas or anything. You can just do that by forming Ruthenia. Okay, now let's go to the governing Senate reform. Let me just enact that real quick. You can see the governing Senate has a different kind of ability. First of all, it lets the calling diet no longer increase the influence, which is actually quite a nice thing in my opinion. You can just do that all day or night without worrying about the influence. But on top of that, it also enables the parliament. And now the interesting part about that, it enables the parliament without disabling the nobility. So let me just wait, 1 month or something to prove that to you. You can see I still have the nobility. And that is a huge, huge advantage towards the other way of getting a parliament. So of course I'm a theocracy right now, but you can see that as a theocracy as well. So for example, the theocratic democracy reform over here, it gives you a parliament, but it disables the nobility estate and the call diet. So this governing Senate reform not only allows you to have the diet without influence, so even better, but also it allows you to have a parliament with all the crazy parliament bonuses that of course you all know by this point. They are just crazy, right? Also for like world conquest, colonizing, converting, you get missionaries, you get colonists and stuff like that, right? So a huge boost to your country, the parliament, but without losing the insane bonuses of all the privileges and the modifiers from the nobility estate. So that's a huge, huge thing. And trust me, there are very, very few government reforms that actually give that parliament without losing the nobility. And most of the time that will be, for example, a Dutch monarchy, Dutch stadtholder reform or something, right? Which is culture-based. Okay, this reform over here is not culture-based. You could be whatever culture you want, whatever religion you want, whatever country you want, and still even whatever government type you want, and you could still have that bonus of a parliament and the nobility estate. And on top of that, it also has crazy strong modifiers for the states. You can see it gives an additional plus 10% all estates loyalty equilibrium, which is a huge amount. But on top of that, it not gives additional influence. No, it gives negative 10% influence to all of your estates. And on top of that also, 1 max privileges per estate. So this reform, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated reforms in the entire game, which is probably because most people think that you need to form Russia for this reform, which I just showed you is not actually true. But anyways, I've talked a lot about 2 reforms already, so I guess this is it for this week. What do you think about these 2 reforms and the very easy accessibility of these 2 reforms compared to their insane modifiers that are very unique? Let me know in the comments what you would do with these reforms, and we are going to see, as always, on another Monday.
Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Oh, yeah, I've been wanting this forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey, yeah, ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy. Extra, extra.